Are you ready for the first Sprocket and Chubbs Tailgate Talk? In this first Tailgate Talk, we're going to have a chilling conversation about how to travel with your game meat on an airplane, be it a hard cooler or a soft cooler, which is our preference. We're going to give you the ins and outs and how to maximize or manipulate your air travel when you're returning from a hunt. But first, we get to listen to my favorite snack man as he talks to you about our 4 title sponsors.
Are you looking for the best camouflage apparel and hunting packs on the planet? Badlands lives and breathes technology, performance, and quality. Sprocket and Chubbs love the innovative hunting apparel in the Approach and Approach FX camouflage patterns. There is apparel and a Badlands backpack for every hunting style. Badlands also offers their legendary unconditional lifetime warranty. To find out more, visit badlandsgear.com. The king of adjustable pin archery sights, HHA Sports is home of the Tetra Rise 2-pin slider. Featuring a fixed secondary pin and secondary yardage marker, the Tetra Rise allows you to adjust your aiming point at full draw. With a silky 2.1 inches of travel, the Tetra Rise features the longest sight tapes they have ever built for unmatched long-range accuracy. HHA sights are proudly made in the USA and carry a 100% lifetime warranty. Find out more at hhasports.com or visit your local archery dealer today. When you think Latitude Outdoors, you think saddle hunting. Latitude Outdoors is fueled by creativity and obsessed with the details. And their saddles are made right here in the USA. As far as we're concerned, Latitude Outdoors makes the very best hunting saddles on the market. High quality gear that is safe, comfortable, and simply fun to hunt from. There's a Latitude Outdoors saddle for every size and shape hunter out there. Want to learn more about saddle hunting? Go to latitudeoutdoors.com and have fun. Who do Sprocket and Chubbs rely on for our optics needs? Vortex Optics. Binoculars, rifle scopes, rangefinders, and more, Vortex offers premium products that are an investment in your hunting future. Their customers are at the center of everything they do. Their VIP warranty, where the VIP stands for Very Important Promise, means if your Vortex product becomes damaged or defective, they will repair or replace it at no charge to you. For all your optics needs, visit vortexoptics.com. How we doing, Sprocket?
Chubbs, I am grand.
You and I were talking about some of our hunt trips, and we thought we'd put together a really nice, quick and dirty topic of coolers and when we travel. For those that don't know, Aaron and I do a lot of traveling when we hunt. We do a lot of traveling in general, but when we hunt, we travel to a lot of different states. And
Prestige worldwide.
Yeah. And we, of course, we want to travel more and hunt more, but we've learned over the years about some different things that we do with our coolers. Both of us thought would be very interesting to talk about and to kind of give you guys some tips and see how we do things a little bit differently.
What's the end goal of traveling for hunting? Harvesting an animal out of your state of residence and then returning with that meat. How do you do that without paying an excess amount of money and putting it in the pockets of FedEx or UPS? And with the potential of it being lost. And that has happened. The butcher shop that was on standby to process and ship elk for hunting partner and I last September, they warned us, we will ship for you. It's going to cost you between $500 and $700 to have like 2-day shipping. We have had a meat shipment lost in the past. So there's that gamble.
Absolutely. And I've had issues before where I've shipped meat from New York to California and the outside portion of the meat all thawed and went bad. Again, learning experience, but I tell you what, your heart sinks when you get that package and you know that there's just going to be, blood seeping out the bottom of that from the meat.
So how do you get the meat home? Obviously in a truck. If you're driving, it's simple. You take enough coolers with you or you buy coolers on site, you ice it down, you travel at home. That's the easy solution. What do you do if you want to fly?
That's interesting. I've learned a lot over the years. I've been in California, 17 years now. And I've learned...
Communist.
Yeah. I haven't turned over yet, comrade. the biggest challenge for me was I like to plan things out. You know that. My family knows that. I went with, okay, I had an Orca cooler. What I have, I think I had a 70 quart cooler that I brought with me, no wheels, but I wanted to make sure I was good. I take it back. The first year I had an Igloo cooler that was a flip top that was very cheap, and I duct taped the heck out of it. And I got the meat back here, but I wanted to experiment the next year. So I brought this other cooler that I thought, okay, it has more space. What a lot of people don't think about, which I didn't think about, was that cooler weighs 40 pounds.
Yes.
That counts against you on every airline except for Southwest. Southwest, you can get your 2 free bags in there, and you're usually pretty good. But every other airline, that's going to be a $35 to $45 check-in luggage. If it goes over, and my problem was, sure, you can have a 40-pound cooler. You can easily fit 60 pounds of meat in there, sometimes 70. I think I got 70 pounds of meat or 72 pounds of meat, and it went over. So they would not accept it at the airline. I had to empty out, I think I took 3 roasts and 2 hearts out to get it just under. And that cost me $150 to check that bag. I refuse to do that anymore. So over the years, I've experimented quite a bit, and I do 2 things now. Like when we went to Nebraska, the first time I did not bring a hard-sided cooler. I figured, you know what? If I get a deer, in grand hopes that I do get to go home with meat, I will go to Walmart and I will buy a $25 Igloo cooler that has plenty of space. One of the challenges that I had with the Orcas or the Cabela's coolers, they're great coolers, don't get me wrong. For throwing in my truck, I won't put anything else in there. It'll hold ice for a week. But the injection molded coolers they reduce the amount of space that you can put meat in or ice in.
And they're heavy.
And they're very heavy. And most of them are very awkward. Of course, the larger you get, you fill it with meat. You need 2 people to move a cooler. I mean, look at us in Nebraska with your deer. I mean, we had to use 2 people. Otherwise, you're throwing your back out or slipping on the grass. So
for ground travel, hard coolers are the best.
100%.
If you're traveling by vehicle, I highly suggest spending the money on a hard cooler. Pick your brand. It doesn't matter. A hard cooler will benefit you in the long run if you're traveling by ground. If you are flying, they are certainly going to hinder you, and you don't need a hard cooler for air travel, because to go coast to coast with one layover somewhere, you're looking at your meat being out of a freezer for roughly 12 hours on the average.
Yeah.
That's flying time and a decent layover somewhere. That's not a long period of time. So if you have the ability to freeze your meat solid before you depart, you put it in a low-end cooler or a soft cooler, 12 hours later, that's still rock solid.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what I figured out the last couple of years is when I went to New York last year, my dad had an Igloo cooler that was very thin wall, but it was just very rectangular. And I was able to fit, and it had a concave lid. So I was able to fit, I forget how many, I think we fit 45 pounds of meat in this cooler, but the cooler weighed 6 pounds. And then all I just did was duct tape it, and I put game meat on the cooler. I still have it in my garage. I haven't returned it to him yet. Sorry, Dad. I'll bring it this next year. But I've used it 2 years. And so this last year, I wanted to experiment. I was talking with my friend Ramon, my hunting partner out here in California, and he said, have you tried a soft-sided cooler as a carry-on? And I thought, again, it's one of those things that you have to figure out, how long is your actual travel going to be? And typically, when I leave New York and I get to California, it's anywhere from 8 to 12 hours. If that meat is frozen solid, it's going to remain frozen solid, especially in a cooler that is going to be underneath the plane or in the belly of the plane, because it's going to be ice cold in there anyway. It's going to stay frozen. The challenge you have is using it as a carry-on. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot. And so I was able to use a Yeti soft-sided cooler, one of the Hopper coolers this year. And I was able to fit 30 to 35 pounds of meat in this sucker. And I spent way too much time packing and unpacking the Igloo cooler of my dad's and this Yeti cooler. But I got both of my deer in there, plus the hearts of their deer. And I mean, just right. What I would recommend is I was ready to carry this as my carry-on. The funny thing was, I couldn't tell if I looked like an old lady carrying a giant man purse or if it looked like I was just carrying a lunchbox. When I walked in, I'm carrying this bag. And again, it's unassuming. It's full of game meat. And I did put a label on it. But the great thing about the hopper coolers is it seals right up. All of the meat was frozen when I left. And I was fortunate enough that when I got to the airport, they said, hey, this flight is booked solid. Do you mind checking your other bag for free? Done. Here you go.
So that's a tip that we need to capitalize on for the listeners.
Definitely you can even ask. I've asked before, hey, is this a full flight? Can you check this? Sometimes they'll say, well, you got to go through TSA. And then
that's the key, Al. You do not ask until you arrive at your gate. If you talk to your check-in agent, they're going to check your bag for money. If you wait until you move through security and you arrive at your actual gate and you speak with a gate attendant and express your concern that the flight's full, they will check your bag for free.
That's 100%. But I also think that if you get a nice agent up front, which I know can be very rare, but this is for those of you that are nice agents up front, kudos to you. But there are some that are just evil. If you get a nice one and you talk to them, you can nonchalantly ask. And a lot of time, I mean, heck, when you show up in camo, I'm wearing my Badlands camo and I walk up, oh, were you hunting? Did you get something? I want to do a Bill Engvall and I want to come up with something really funny, be like, here's your sign. But I'm like, you're at the airport, probably not the place to do it. So I just, here you go. Yeah, I've got game meat and I will wait until they've run it through their X-ray machine to make sure there's nothing bad in it and they wave me on. But this last year was probably by far one of the best times. I mean, to get both of my deer back home without any issue. I actually had room in my hard-sided cooler at the top because I only wanted to get 49 pounds in that cooler. So I was able to get 39 pounds of meat in that cooler because the cooler weighed 6 pounds. And then I put, how much did I have? I had 42 pounds of meat. And then I stuffed some clothing in there to keep it from rustling around and sealed it right up. And then I was able to fill the rest of my meat went in my soft-sided cooler. Now, it is heavy when you're carrying it on, but I've seen some people bring some carry-on luggage that made mine look like a purse, and I have no problem bringing it on there. And when I got it home, I think this is the key thing to remember too. When I got it home, I'm going to say it was probably 10 hours later. The top layer of my soft-sided cooler was slightly thawed. Just meant that I had to eat some venison that week. I've had no problem, and I know that they tell you not to refreeze your meat. I tell you what, I've never had any problem refreezing that meat. It tastes perfect. I vacuum seal everything. I know you vacuum seal everything.
That's correct.
It's not where we used to, like in the past when you used to use saran wrap and freezer paper. I don't do that anymore. This is vacuum sealed. I had no worries about leakage. It stayed ice cold throughout. And yeah, I took a couple packages out and ate them that week, but I was able to get 70 plus almost 80 pounds of meat back home. It was fantastic.
Where'd you pack all your snacks for that trip?
Oh, that goes in my Badlands pack.
And your pockets?
Oh, I tell you what, I fill in every pocket. I must pull out
your snack holes.
Yeah, I tell you what, if it was a cold pack in there, I'd have a sandwich and everything else. But I've got enough snacks in there. I pull it out. I probably look like a crazy person. But then they look at my size and they're like, okay, yeah, now we see why.
So I have traveled with meat on flights twice in the last 6 months. So I traveled from Texas to Virginia Beach with a lower end soft-sided cooler. When I say lower end, meaning it had the thermal plastic barrier in the interior portion of the bag, but it was a canvas bag with a zipper, and it was not a high-end moisture barrier zipper. It was a standard zipper. Everything that was in that bag when it was packed was frozen rock solid. And I had one layover. So again, I was traveling for a solid 10 hours from the time of departing lodging to arriving at my home, 10 to 12 hours of travel. Everything in that bag was still frozen. And that was a lower end soft-sided cooler without any dry ice. I flew out to see my parents for this trip, solid 12 hours of travel with that Yeti 30 hopper, which their new design is like a Ziploc. There is not a zipper on the new hoppers. It folds over on itself, similar to how a dry bag rolls over. I packed frozen meat and fish in that bag. I put in 4 pounds of dry ice and sealed that cooler. An hour later at the airport, I had to throw my dry ice out because that hopper is airtight. So it was blowing up my dry ice off gases. That's why airlines do not want people to pack dry ice in their coolers, because it creates a blevy. It will not, well, it's not really a blevy, but it will erupt from internal pressure. I had to throw my dry ice out because of the design of that Yeti. Long story short, when I arrived out in Washington with that bag of meat without any dry ice, just frozen product in it, everything was still frozen. If I was using a lower end soft-sided cooler that was not airtight, you can use dry ice because it has the ability to off gas. It will leak the pressure out through the zipper, and you'll keep that meat rock solid for well over 12 to 15 hours. The other option that I've seen somebody do, Al, is they take a oversized backpack for their carry-on and they just use the compression straps to pull everything tight as they fly out. So the bag is pretty much empty. They take like a 40-quart cheap Coleman or off-brand roller cooler, and that's where they put all they pack their clothes and everything inside that cooler, duct tape it shut, put the little extended handle down, and they check that as their luggage. Then when they're on site, they put their meat in that, they shift all their clothing over to their backpack. Now it becomes a large carry-on. They check that cooler as their single item, which other than United, which I will not fly United unless I absolutely have to, because you have 0 bags free on United. You check that first bag free, it's full of meat, and then you have a carry-on. Now, as we were talking earlier, you get a soft-sided cooler, and now you have 2 large carry-ons. Wait till you get to your gate, check that second large carry-on for free, and now you have all of your clothing or equipment. You have 2 coolers full of meat, and you've only been charged for 1 checked bag.
It's a great thing when you learn how much you've learned over the past, probably 10, 15, 20 years with travel like that. Now, real quick, how easy is it for you to get dry ice?
Super easy where I'm at. There's a Harris Teeter grocery store that's 2 miles down the road from my home. They have a dedicated cooler for dry ice.
Oh, very nice.
Now, for those that don't know, and this isn't common knowledge, even though a person would think it is, dry ice cannot be stored in a normal freezer. It's not cold enough. It turns into powder and goes away. So you have to buy your dry ice as you are preparing for travel, like the morning of.
I've never used dry ice. I've considered it. I considered it in the very first few years traveling from here to New York and back, but I have not used it just due to the fact that we crank up my dad's freezer and freeze everything solid overnight, and that seems to work really well.
That now, really is all you need.
Yeah, and if you're doing more travel, if you've got stops somewhere, it might be a challenge. But again, plan your trip out. I mean, you and I are pretty good about planning almost down to the minute how long it's going to take us to get someplace. If I've got a 3-hour, even a 4-hour layover, if I've got a 4-hour layover in Texas and it's August, okay, then I want to make sure everything is sealed up right, because half the stuff will sit on the tarmac or right off to the side.
And the other trick, Al, that you taught me, and I don't know why I never thought about this, when you're traveling with the bow case, stuff that sucker full of clothes. There's ample room inside that bow case. So if your bow case and everything inside of it is 20 pounds, you have 30 pounds of clothing to shove inside that bow case to get from point A to point B, which again provides a whole lot of room for carry-on stuff.
Yeah, I should probably send a thank you card to TSA, because I probably drive them nuts every time I do it. But yeah, utilize that space. And there have been times, I did this when I went to Nebraska this last year, is I did bring my dad's cooler with me, and I put my 1 stick in there with a bunch of clothing, a lot of my heavy stuff that I just did not want to pack in a suitcase or what have you, but would not fit in my bow case as well. I tell you what, now that I've got the Badlands Terraglide, things are going to change next year for sure. And we can have a whole podcast about that sometime. But being able to pack everything in that hard-sided cooler going out there, unfortunately for me, I didn't harvest a deer, so I was able to put it all back in and bring it back. But the plan was, okay, I do have one cooler. If I don't need to go get another one, I can, but I can ship back all my clothes at a fraction of the cost as it would be to check my cooler. And that's what I plan to do each time. Now, I normally don't want to bring a cooler with me, but again, if I'm returning this to New York to my dad and my brother so that they can fill it, perfect. But that soft-sided cooler is a nice little game changer too. Really, really helps.
The soft-sided cooler is a perfect option. And again, yes, I own a very expensive Yeti. It's durable. It works like a champ, and I don't have to worry about it. Is somebody able to go to Walmart, buy a low-end soft-sided cooler on site, fill it full of frozen meat, and 12 hours later through flights still have frozen meat? You absolutely will. I can't guarantee what type of shape that soft cooler will be in if you end up checking it. When I flew from Texas, they ripped handles off of that soft-sided cooler because of how heavy it was, and you're putting it through checked baggage. So you might go through several low-end soft-sided coolers over a couple of years of hunting, or maybe even one hunting trip, whereas the Yetis are incredibly durable, but the option is there. There's ways to get your meat home without putting it in the hands of a shipping company and paying a lot of money for somebody to potentially lose it for you.
I 100% agree with that. Even my Yeti had a nice black race car streak down it from where it hit something, but you know what?
That's just a star. Rubbin's racing. That's not a big deal.
It just adds flavor to the meat.
Yeah, it's like a stretch mark. It's not a big deal.
That's right. Well, good. I think that gives our listeners a good overall view of how we handle our coolers and our different hunts. If you guys have any tips or tricks that you guys do, email us at sprocketandchubbs@gmail.com. Hit us up on Instagram, hit us up on Facebook, wherever. Give us a call if you've got our numbers. I would love to hear some other tips.
And if you want to experiment with it, feel free to go pick up an inexpensive cooler and throw it on a flight full of meat for us. And when we receive it, we'll tell you how quality your meat was when we received it.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'm not ashamed. Send me some.
Perfect. Sprocket, it's been great chatting with you about coolers. I look forward to the next hunt.
Chubbs, I love podcasting because I get to see your face. I hope you have a great day.
You too.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm ready for a frosty cold beverage after that topic. Thanks for tuning in to Sprocket and Chubbs' first Tailgate Talk. Look forward to many more to come. As always, you can send us your comments or feedback at sprocketandchubbs@gmail.com, or you can reach Sprocket at limitlessoutdoors.com or Chubbs at thesocalbowhunter.com. Legal disclaimer, no prosthetics were harmed during this podcast. Sprocket and Chubbs Tailgate Talks are brought to you by If You Can't Be Good at It, Look Good at It Productions.